Okay, so the Brooklyn Nets were a team I expected to completely 100% blow it all up this offseason after trading KD and Kyrie and getting. I think they were the only team besides the Lakers swept in the playoffs. Something like that. Maybe I could be wrong, but I expected them to just blow it up because they seem to definitely want draft picks for KD. I think they only got one for Kyrie, but for KD they wanted a lot. So I'm like, yeah, they're looking for the future. Let's see what happens. And then they have not really traded anyone away besides Patty Mills, right? Um, they're in an awkward spot, I feel like, where they have a lot of players that are useful to contenders like Dorian Finney-Smith, Royce O'Neal, and Nick Claxton. That these guys can play like playoff minutes. These guys are really good basketball players, but they're kind of on a team that doesn't seem to have a direction. So the direction I could see it going is if they're involved with the Damian Lillard trade and Portland doesn't need another guard, so they dump Tyler Hero off to Brooklyn in some sort of weird multi-team trade. And I saw a tweet by PB the Plug, if y'all know him, about this looks like if Tyler Hero goes to the Nets, this kind of looks like the D-Lo Nets, but a little bit more talented. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of agree with that. You know, Tyler Hero, Cam Thomas, Cam Johnson, all those guys getting shots up. Mikal Bridges, is he going to get traded or not? Or what's going on there? We don't know. Mikal Bridges obviously looked good last season. That's kind of known, though. But, yeah, I think if they have a lot of, like, those kind of bucket getter types, but not really like a solid team or contender whatsoever, that could definitely be good for some ticket sales. You know, they were, I think, the worst team in attendance, like ticket sales last year, which kind of makes sense. The Knicks are New York's team, unfortunately, and the New Jersey people don't really care about them that much. That's why the team moved. So that makes sense. If their goal is just to sell tickets and try to like slowly and steadily rebuild, like they did after the KG Paul Pierce trade went sour, that's fine. They actually did a pretty good job rebuilding and getting assets from that after that awful trade. They did some good drafting, good moves, blah blah blah. But if they're going back to doing that slow, like eventually we can be, because the Nets, they like to win games. That's the thing. The Nets don't like to suck. They kind of are in the cycle of like making risky all-in moves, That's their thing, really. They're kind of like those like wannabe contenders, which is, I think, honestly pretty interesting. But I'm gonna go to some players on the team. I like Day'Ron Sharpe. Not a player a lot of people talk about, but he was a backup center for the Nets. Nick Claxton, obviously amazing player, but he's a little skinny. He can get a little bullied. So having a more traditional center that can just kind of be a little bigger, kind of get some more boards, I think he's just good at basketball. I definitely think he can be a good backup or a starting center at one point. I really just hope he gets development. He seems like a really cool player. Ben Simmons, when you're talking about a team, his contract is definitely a big part of it. I honestly think he sabotaged the KD Kyrie Nets by being trash. You could argue it's not his fault, whether he should have been playing because of his back or whatever. I don't really know what's going on there. Some people think he faked his injury as an excuse. I don't know what's going on with Ben Simmons, but I do know he was obviously insanely unaggressive, very mentally weak. Wasn't really a positive on defense like you may think. He looked just kind of average defensively. For his, not even for his standards, he just didn't look super good defensively. I watched a lot of Nets games, and he didn't wow me defensively. Offensively, obviously, he was not looking at the basket and was, getting told by Kyrie to shoot. He just wasn't aggressive whatsoever. Was definitely really hard to watch. Next, Cam Johnson. They just gave a bag to him, which I thought was cool. He looked like one of the really only good offensive sparks they had on the squad in the playoffs. So if he can get you buckets, pay him some money. And speaking of buckets, we got Cam Thomas, who I'm not sure if this is really a topic anyone cares about anymore, but it's kind of a good question of like how valuable is a guy who can get you buckets, and specifically buckets by ball hogging. I think his defense, passing, and rebounding are all pretty bad. Not even just below average, they're pretty bad. And those are hard things to teach. It's hard to teach someone to play defense well, to pass well. Rebounding, he's a little small, so that probably will never come to him. But, these things, he's been a bucket getter all his life probably. So those things are not going to be natural to him. He's going to put all of his effort into, getting buckets. He's like one of those type of players that models their game off Kobe. So he basically just ball hogs a lot and shoots from, mid range, from three. Cool player though. I definitely hope he achieves like the role of a 6-man bucket getter, Jordan Clarkson, Norm Powell type. I like those players a lot, and if he can get better at passing and defense, he could easily get. All he needs to do is get a little better at that and develop a little more. If the Nets aren't willing to give him a lot of minutes next season, which I think they super should, by the way, they don't lose much, I don't think. Besides, I guess, making the offense a little focused on him when he's in there. He doesn't really fit into like a super free-flowing offense well. He just kind of gets the ball and will shoot it eventually. Spencer Dinwiddie, aka Din Shitty, is also a pretty interesting part of this team because he's way older than everyone else. And he also is stinking it up in the playoffs. So if they want to get rid of him, I think it makes a lot of sense to do that. It would be kind of tough for him to just be passed around so many teams, but is he a mentor on this team? Because if that's not helpful, then I don't see why he's still on there. I think you want to put the ball in the hands of Mikal Bridges, Cam Thomas, Cam Johnson, and maybe some other guards if they want to increase the ceiling, like Tyler Hero, like I said earlier. I think that makes more sense than having Spencer Dinwiddie bring the ball up the court. But that's just my opinion, though. I don't know where this team is going whatsoever. They have Ben Simmons and a lot of interesting players, but no clear path to contending at all. Even if they did get like a Damian Lillard somehow, I don't know if this team could contend. I really don't. You need some really, really good minutes from Mikal Bridges and Claxton and all those guys, because I don't even know who the number 2 to Dame would be. What would they even give up to get Dame? It's definitely a situation where I think Ben Simmons will be on a different team soon. I don't think it makes a lot of sense for him to be here. A lot of teams are doing like contract dump type things because of the new CBA. And Ben Simmons' contract, it may be dumped. I'm not sure. Maybe there's some people who are more like on the idea that he can get good at basketball again. I'm not one of them. I think his career is so over. I don't think he's going to be a factor on any team ever. I don't think that. I think he doesn't like the game of basketball, and he's shown pretty much zero commitment to actually getting better at things he clearly does need to. And I'm not sure physically what his back is doing or whatever is going on there. So, yeah, Ben Simmons is a non-factor. He's what I think a lot of people and maybe fans will point to. The KD Kyrie thing, it just was a disaster. So I think the Brooklyn Nets are going young without really super committing to it. They signed Dennis Smith Jr. and Lonnie Walker this offseason, which I think both those moves are cool. Two other players that take the ball out of the hands of Spencer Dinwiddie. So, yeah, those guys are pretty low-risk, high-reward players in terms of what they can get. We saw what Lonnie Walker did in the playoffs, and we saw what Dennis Smith Jr. did at the start of the season. Those players can, if you give them an opportunity, go off, which is really cool. So I think a major part of what the Nets will be doing right now is getting the trade value of their pieces up, because they have a lot of good basketball players, none that are super dominant. So if they can do what they did to Mikal Bridges and get the league to notice, hey, this guy, when you put the ball in his hands, is good. If you increase his role, he's good. Same could be done for Nick Claxton. Same could be done for Dorian Finney-Smith. If these guys get their trade value up, same with Cam Thomas, obviously. If these guys get their trade value up, it makes it way easier for the Nets to rebuild or commit to contending or whatever, If they have more assets, by just simply developing players, that's how they can get better. That's how they can rebuild. That's how they can win more games next year. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, sub, blah, 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 blah. If you have any thoughts, let me know. Peace out.